Hello and welcome to Adventist World Radio, the voice of hope. It is another wonderful day that God has given unto us, so let us rejoice and be glad in it. Stay tuned to this new live program. I'm your host, Tileno Diam. According to the previous programs you have been listening to, we are always appreciative and most delightful for taking your time to listen to what we have in store for you. In today's program, Musavi Muteshi will be sharing with us about conjunctivitis, or one can also call it pink eye. Later on, Pastor Kigundu will also be joining us with the topic on Wilderness of Mercy. For now, let us listen to some of the inspiring music that we have in store for you. Stay tuned.
Only a boy named David, only a little sling.
Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing.
Only a boy named David, only a little brook.
Only a boy named David, but 5 little stones he took.
And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round.
And 1 little stone went up in the air,
And the giant came tumbling
and the giant came
down.
tumbling
And the giant
down.
came tumbling down, came tumbling down.
Only a boy named David,
Only a boy named David,
only a little sling.
only a little sling.
Only a boy named David,
Only a boy named David,
he could pray and sing.
he could pray and sing.
Only a boy named David,
Only a boy named David at the brook.
Only a boy named
3,
David,
4,
but
5 little stones he took. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And 1 little stone went up in the air,
and the giant came tumbling.
and the giant came tumbling.
And the giant came tumbling,
And the giant came tumbling, 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 tumbling.
Hope you have been blessed by that sweet melodious tune. Conjunctivitis, or if you like pink eye, is an inflammation of the conjunctiva caused by infection, injury, or allergy around the eye. We now welcome the lovely voice of Musavi Muteshi to enlighten us more about conjunctivitis in the health segment.
Hello, listener. Welcome to our program Health Nuggets. I'm your presenter, Musavi Muteshi. Today, I would like to talk about a condition of the eyes called conjunctivitis or pink eye. Pink eye is not a disease in itself, but rather a condition that can have several causes. It is an inflammation or infection of the clear outermost surface of our eye and the inner surface of the eyelid. It occurs commonly, especially in children, and it can affect either one or both eyes. Inflammation causes small blood vessels on the eye surface to become dilated, making the eye appear pink or red in color. While pink eye is very often only a minor problem, some forms of the condition are serious. Some forms are highly contagious, and they can easily be spread to others. Symptoms of pink eye, other than the redness of the white portion of the eye, include itching, burning, and a gritty feeling. The eyelid may swell, and you may experience increased sensitivity to light. The inflammation causes considerable tearing, and the discharge will crust during the night as you sleep. Pink eye can be caused by either a bacterial infection, a viral infection, or by an allergy. It often occurs along with symptoms of a common cold or with a throat or lung infection. There is always a watery discharge, although a bacterial infection can produce a discharge that is thicker and yellow-green in color. Both bacterial and viral pink eye are highly contagious, so that coughing or sneezing of others can easily infect you. Despite that possibility, the bacteria that most often cause your bacterial pink eye come from your own skin or lungs, and the viruses that cause your viral pink eye most commonly come from your own nose, throat, or lungs. Allergic pink eye is different in that it is not contagious, so no one can spread their infection to you. Instead, this form of inflammation is caused by an allergy you may have to such things as tree pollen. You will, however, experience the same intense itching, tearing, and inflammation of the eyes as do those who suffer bacterial or viral infections. The most serious complication of pink eye is that the inflammation of the white portion of the eye can spread over that portion of the eye through which you see, causing temporary or even permanent vision problems. Because of this, and because some forms of pink eye are highly contagious, doctors now recommend that you get a medical evaluation if the redness and symptoms have not begun to clear after an initial 3 days of conservative treatment at home. Why should you wait for 3 days to see a doctor if you have inflammation that can cause serious problems? Let's look at the causes one at a time. Concerning bacterial pink eye, mild cases are self-limiting, likely resolving without the need of antibiotic therapy. The use of antibiotics can cause an antibiotic resistance in the bacteria, so recent medical literature recommends that they be used only for the treatment of infections that do not improve with 3 days of conservative treatment. If your condition doesn't improve, your doctor will prescribe antibiotic eye drops, and you can expect clearing of the symptoms following several days of therapy. As for viral pink eye, no specific medication has ever been developed to effectively kill the viruses that cause the condition. Our bodies were created with an immune system designed to combat invasion by foreign proteins such as viruses, and you must rely on that system to clear the infection. That may take 2 to 3 weeks. Finally, allergic pink eye is not contagious. So, no matter the cause of the pink eye, conservative treatment at home is a logical first step. Conservative therapy starts with warm, soothing compresses. Make a warm compress by soaking a clean, lint-free cloth in hot water, wring it out to be sure it is not too hot, then apply it gently to your closed eyelid. Apply it for 10 minutes 3 to 4 times a day. Be careful not to touch both eyes with the same cloth. This will reduce the risk of spreading the inflammation from one eye to the other. Artificial tears that you can buy without a prescription will soothe the eyes, relieving the symptoms of itching and grittiness, and they will flush out watery discharge. If you wear contact lenses, stop wearing them. If you wear disposable contact lenses, throw them away along with the cleaning solution and lens case. If your lenses aren't disposable, clean them thoroughly before you reuse them. In the event that substantial swelling of the eyelid has developed, cold rather than warm compresses can decrease the swelling. Good hygiene will help prevent the spread of pink eye to others. Don't cough or sneeze on others. Don't touch your eyes with your hands. Wash your hands often using a clean towel and washcloth. And don't share your towels or washcloths with anyone. Throw away your eye cosmetics such as mascara, and don't share your cosmetics or personal eye care items. A common concern is just how long a bacterial or viral pink eye infection remains contagious. You can pass the infection as long as your eye continues to tear and produce a discharge, usually for 3 to 7 days. When the tearing and discharge have stopped, it is safe for your child to return to school or for you to return to normal social interaction. For bacterial infections requiring antibiotic therapy, you should have taken the antibiotic eye drops for at least 24 hours before you return to school or work. Once your pink eye has cleared, follow up with your doctor to ensure that the treatment has been successful and that the infection does not recur. Health Nuggets is written by Dr. Richard Uckel, a medical doctor working in the United States. The medical views expressed in this program are his and may differ for your particular health needs. If you need medical advice, please consult a medical professional in your area. Thank you for listening.
If at all you are just joining us, this is New Life program coming to you from Adventist World Radio, the Voice of Hope. I'm your presenter, Tileno Diambo. To play part in this program, send us your comments and thoughts to the producer, Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 42276, code 00100, Nairobi, Kenya. Our email address is awrnairobi@eau.adventist.org.
Let us sing a song that will cheer us by the way. In a little while we're going home. For the night will end in the everlasting day. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home. There's a rest beyond, there's relief from every care. In a little while we're going home, and no tears shall fall in that city bright and fair. In a little while we're going home. In a little while, in a little while, we shall cross the billows foam. We shall meet at last when the stormy winds are past. In a little while we're going home.
We now invite Pastor Kigundu Ndwiga to shed some more light to us on the topic Wilderness of Mercy in the Stewardship series. Stay tuned for this and more items still coming your way.
Dear listener, I want to welcome you to our exciting biblical stewardship series. I want us to talk about the wilderness of mercy, And I want us to look at the story of Jonah. See, the story of Jonah plowed new thought patterns into the theological landscape of Judaism. Jonah drops into history in the midst of a people who differentiated themselves from the world, whose pride appropriated the goodness of God for themselves, and whose prejudice locked others outside the circle of their concern. The story of Jonah shatters the narrowness and the superiority of anyone or of any group who would dare think that he or it alone enjoys God's favor. The story of Jonah is meant to crush pride and crumble prejudice. Scholars and non-scholars have spent long hours persuading other scholars and non-scholars that the story of Jonah is actual history or that it is a parable or an allegory. It is possible, dear listener, to devote so much time persuading people to swallow the fish story that we fail to catch the great spiritual drama that unfolds. So, who was Jonah? Jonah was a worshipper of the Creator. He believed in God, believed in creation, worshipped on the Sabbath, understood right and wrong, knew about the controversy between good and evil, and comprehended something of the justice and mercy of God. And therefore, Jonah could be a member or even a leader of our church. But now there is something else. Jonah was a strong nationalist. Like his countrymen after the exile, there grew up in him bitterness towards others. His nation had suffered so much from its enemies. There was no room in his heart or the nation's heart for forgiveness or civility towards others. Humanity had been squeezed into two groups, them and us. Nineveh, capital of Assyria, represented Israel's most bitter enemy. Now, the other thing about Jonah is that Jonah was a proud denominationalist. He could fit right with the Seventh-day Adventists who also consider themselves as the called people. Like many of us, Jonah believed God reserved special blessings for his group and that somehow the virtue of being called carried with it a subtle sense of superiority. Jonah deliberately disobeyed God. Now, this indeed is a strong feature of the story. A worshipper of God deliberately disobeyed. Some may feel Jonah was timid and that his fear of Ninevites propelled him towards Tarshish. Consider his amazing courage when on board the ship he told the sailors to toss him overboard. When he finally got to Nineveh, there was boldness and determination in his preaching. No, he was not a coward. Then why did he disobey God? Jonah was in conflict with God. Jonah's worship of God brought him to an intellectual understanding of what God was like. He knew God was gracious, but he did not wish for God to be gracious to his enemies. His intellectual theology had not been assimilated into his emotional life. He worshipped God, he knew God, but he wanted God's character to be changed. So Jonah fled God's presence because it was too uncomfortable. He was exposed to God's searching judgments, and his littleness, his sin, his prejudices and hypocrisies stood revealed for what they were. Yet in God's presence, he would have been a changed man. In God's presence, his prides and his hatreds could have been transcended. In God's presence, he would have found inner healing. Now, the ultimate absurdity of Jonah's conflict with God is revealed in the closing scenes of this story. Jonah had pity on a vine that grows up one day and dies the next. But he did not want God to have pity on a city of 1 million Gentiles. Jonah was self-centered. Now, self-centeredness, as you'll agree, is a universal tendency. Our main preoccupation is with ourselves. When any new idea or suggestion comes along, our first reaction is, how does this affect me, my position, my future? So it is not surprising that Jonah was embarrassed and angry about the failure of his preaching. It is not surprising that Jonah's emotional state was determined by his physical comfort, that is shade, or discomfort, the blazing sunlight. So what did Jonah discover about himself and about God? Well, we really don't know what happened to Jonah. Did he ever preach another sermon? What effect did Nineveh's surgeon have on him? I would like to think that Jonah learned a lot in the moment. Well, Jonah learned 6 things. Number 1, you can run from God, but you cannot hide. God is infinitely gracious. You can spurn him repeatedly, yet he entreats with tears. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those sent to you, how often have I longed to gather your children together as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you are not willing. Matthew 23 verse 37. There is a great revelation of God's character here. Not only would he save Nineveh, but he would also save Jonah. Lesson number 2, God focuses on the world. The church is not the focus of God's attention and concern. The world is. The scripture describes how precious the church is in God's eyes. But let's not let such statements suggest that God somehow has only secondary regard for the rest of the world. Lesson number 3, how to deliver a judgment message. I expect Jonah never again spoke in thunderous tones about the destructive power of God. He now spoke with tears in his voice. He realized that God's judgment messages are meant as entreaties of the most urgent kind, not denouncement of the most violent kind. Imagine going to the doctor who finds some serious condition in your body. And the doctor exclaims amidst the joy of discovery, in 6 weeks you are going to die. The doctor I go to had better say it differently. A judgment message from God is very tender because it arises out of the pain and the longing of his heart. We who have been entrusted with that message need to speak in softer tones. Lesson number 4, you cannot depersonalize humanity. Jonah could not see individuals. He saw groups and masses. He saw us and them. He branded them with a label of justifying his thinking. Those who lived in Nineveh were not people but Gentiles. They were heathen. How easy it is to classify people into groups and therefore rob them of their dign humanity. When you can train yourself to look at groups, you are spared the obligation of seeing people with compassion. It is easy to listen to a mission appeal for a school or a hospital or toss a dollar into a plate. It is different to know a boy called Emu whose only apparent hope for an education is dependent on you. Life is so much easier when you don't have to see people as individuals. Is there a hint of rebuke in God's word to Jonah? And should not I pity Nineveh, that great city in which there are more than 120,000 persons who do not know their right hand from their left, and also so much country? Yes, God sees the many, but He sees much more. God sees the many in which He sees the one. But there is even more. God sees the little ones, those who do not know their right hand from their left, and who therefore, like cattle, cannot be held at all responsible for the moral state of society. What great encouragement it is to know that God sees even the little ones. Lesson number 5, there is a wilderness in God's mercy. There is a kindness in justice that is more than liberty. Jonah had previously worshipped a territorial God. That territory was the land of Palestine. Its people are the people of promise, the direct descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the ones who kept the law and lived by the blueprint. But here in Nineveh, he learned that, yes, God was a territorial God, but the vastness of His territory took in everyone and every place. There is no person who is not a child of God. That person may be far from home. He may be on a rebellious trip, but is still a child of the King, His royalty. And lastly, the 6th lesson is your special place in the plan of God. Up to this time, Jonah saw himself as part of the elect, the chosen ones, and he thought that being chosen meant being a favorite. But outside Nineveh, crushed by his failure, crippled by frustration, Jonah began to realize that he was called as a co-worker with God. He could say, as did the Apostle Paul centuries later, "By God's grace I have a ministry." Jonah understood that being called, chosen, or blessed by God was not an indication of worth. It was an invitation to work. Jonah discovered his missionary destiny. Jonah discovered that God uses broken people for the highest purposes. Man is happy when he has a utensil that remains whole, and he saddens when it breaks. God, on the other hand, whose most cherished position is man's heart, delights when it is broken in humility. In conclusion, dear listener, Jonah's is not just a fish story. Jonah is a drama played out over and over in the lives of individuals and of religious organizations. In this drama, we are confronted with our littleness and narrowness, our preoccupation with ourselves. In this drama, we are challenged by a great God to see Him anew, to break out of the shell of our little existence, to catch a vision of the purposes and the plans of God, and to rediscover the missionary destiny of His people. May we embrace the wilderness of mercy today.
That's the end of our program today. It has been nice and fulfilling to have your attention. Remember to send us your comments and thoughts to the producer, Adventist World Radio, P.O. Box 42276, code 00100, Nairobi, Kenya. Our email address is awrnairobi@eau.adventist.org. On behalf of my producer, I say thank you and wish you a peaceful and fruitful day. I have been your presenter, Chileno Diambo.
Only a boy named David, only a little sling.
Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing.
Only a boy named David, only a little brook.
Only a boy named David, but 5 little stones he took.
And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round.
And 1 little stone went up up in the air.
And the giant came tumbling
And the giant
down.
came tumbling
And the giant
down.
came tumbling down. Came tumbling down.
Only a boy named David.
Only a boy named David.
Only a little sling.
Only a little sling.
Only a boy named David.
Only a boy named David.
He could pray and sing.
He could pray and sing.
Only a boy named David.
Only a boy named David at a brook.
Only a boy named David,
4,
but
5 little stones he took, and one little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round. And one little stone went in the sling, and the sling went round and round, and round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And one little stone went up in the air,
and the giant came tumbling.
and the giant came tumbling.
And the giant came tumbling,
Tumbling, time came tumbling, 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 tumbling down. Our Father in heaven is the source of life. Our Father in heaven is the source of life, the source of wisdom, the source of wisdom and of joy.
the sunshine,
The sun and the rain that gladdened and refreshed the earth, that gladdened and refreshed the hills and seas and plains. Oh, speak to us of the Creator's love. Oh, speak to us of the Creator's love. God is love, 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 God is love is written upon every opening bud, upon every spire of springing grass.
the lovely birds making the air vocal with their happy songs.
The delicately tinted flowers in their perfection perfuming the air. The lofty trees of the forest with their rich foliage of living green.
Oh, testify to the tender fatherly care of our God. God is love, God is love, God is love, God is love.
Somebody's knocking at your door.